Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Adaptive Zone podcast. My name is Matthew Boyd. I'm a physiotherapist and running coach. If you enjoy the show today, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're so inclined, share it with a friend. Today, we're going to be talking with one of our most beloved clients, Jenn. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here, Matt. Thanks so much for inviting me.
So, you're going to be sharing your story a little bit with us today. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about you and your background in running?
How much time do you have? So basically,
Let's say just a couple of minutes, then
all
we'll
right.
get into more detail.
Well, long story short, I quit smoking about 12 years ago and I needed to pick up another vice, and that vice was running. So
Hmm.
I swapped one with the other. Through almost a decade of what I called training, I was getting injured all the time. And the majority of that was because I was doing, as you kind of pointed out to me, it was very one-dimensional training. There was no cross training at all. It was cycling and running, and that's it. So because of
Hmm.
that, torn my meniscus twice, which gave me an arthroscopic surgery. I tore the labrum in my hip, which gave me another arthroscopic surgery, weight gain, problems here and there. And then when you and I picked up about almost exactly, I think actually exactly a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had patella pain syndrome in my knee, in which my doctor told me really to kind of kick off the running and kind of stop, which
Mm.
is when you and I connected and kind of threw away that game plan and kind of figured out our own roadmap to get me to my milestone moment of turning 40 and finally running the New York City Marathon healthy and happy and having the most fun.
Yes. So we're going to get to the marathon itself in a little while, but I'd like to take listeners back to the problems you had with the knee specifically. So could you tell us a bit more about like when that started and how it came on?
So yeah, so it really all started. I was feeling kind of like a pinch in my knee, and it almost felt like it was like crunching in, if I can actually remember that correctly. But it was right before, I guess, Thanksgiving or October timing of last year, and I had to get an MRI and everything, and the doctor gave me some like copper kind of ace bandage to put on my leg and gave me PT. I was in PT 3 to 4 times a week, which was just really redundant. Everyone hates PT. So it was just something that
Hey.
really didn't fit into my no, but you make it fun. But I listen, I'm a mom. I work full time. I manage a PR and communications agency. I'm training. I love to be active, and that PT really just fit into my day. So
Okay.
it was a little bit harder, but I wasn't able to run the mileage without like a pinching pain in my leg. And just trying to figure out what it was. It actually took a few orthopedics to figure out what exactly was wrong with my leg and my knee specifically.
And do you remember much about like the specific terms they used to describe what the problem was or anything like that?
I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was like patella femoral pain syndrome specifically. It was something that I
Mm.
had. And they said it was caused because the way that my knee, it wouldn't face forward like headlights, it would kind of veer off to the side. So the way that I was running was like a little bit off. And because again, I wasn't really keeping up with my PT throughout the last decade plus, and because I've had knee problems my entire time, and I feel like that's what a lot of runners or pseudo runners or runners that like don't want to run, they're like, it's my knees, it's my knees, it's my knees. But I honestly learned that when you're strengthening and doing the correct work for what you want to do, you really can do it.
Mm. So this was kind of a flare up of a continuous or recurring issue for you with your knees. Like since was it just since you got into running, or was it even like with other stuff before that?
I think it was really running, and I tore my, and it's always in the same leg, so it's always
Hmm.
my left knee. So I tore the meniscus. I had like an arthroscopic scope of it in 2014 or no 2012, and then I tore it again like
Hmm.
probably 6 months later. But then I just PT'd it and rehabbed it through, and it was fine. But again, I think it was just the way I wasn't really training. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't wearing the right shoes. I would go out there, I would sprint. I really wouldn't, there really wasn't a game plan when it came to running. It was just like lace up and get out, like don't fuel. So I think I had a lot of missteps throughout my entire running
Mm.
journey. It was very amateur of me.
This is normal, and I've talked about my own story with running injuries. So, if a physiotherapist of like 10 years can have these troubles, it's quite reasonable that everybody else can. So, I'll just explain some terms for the listeners. So, the meniscus is a tissue it's essentially a cushioning tool in between the thigh bone and the shin bone. It's a cushioning tool. So that's the meniscus. So you had an injury to that, which required some surgery to kind of trim and tidy up. And then you had also trouble with patellofemoral pain. So the patella is the kneecap and the femur is the thigh bone. And on the back of the kneecap, that can become painful sometimes for various reasons. And it's very common among runners. So sometimes it gets called runner's knee. And the more kind of medical term is patellofemoral pain. And that sounds like that was the issue you were diagnosed with. So actually a kind of separate structure to the meniscus, but it sort of illustrates an important point for everybody that the best predictor of future injury is previous injury. So even if you've had an injury not to that tissue, but it was in that knee, the likelihood that you'll have problems with that area in the future is much, much higher. It's the best predictor. So it is unfortunate that when you have a weak area like that, you are more likely to get more problems with it in the future and have to pay even more attention to it. Does that sound like how you understood the problem to be with your knee, or was your understanding quite different?
I think when any runner has an injury, you don't really listen to anything other than when can I start running again. So I feel it, and here in the States, when you're honestly, and then when you're here in the States, you get like 15 minutes and they rush you out. So it's not really, you don't get like a lot of time. And like when you're not exactly understanding
Mm,
about like what they're going to say or diagnose you with, like you don't have questions. And then like you're on Google after and you're trying to figure out all the things. I think any runner in general is just like trying to prevent injury. And I think that's how I found you, through like Instagram, because I feel like that's
mm,
another thing, like TikTok, social media, Instagram is kind of how runners are figuring out like how to rehab an injury, the PT moves that you should be doing. I think one of your guests, like Jason Fitzgerald, I followed him a lot, trying to figure out like how to like not get injured again.
mm.
And kind of, I think that's what everyone, it's either like how to race or how to prevent or treat an injury. And that's kind of like a vicious cycle that I've always unfortunately been through, except for the past year.
So, in spite of being in PT, then it sounds a little to me like you were still a little unsure of what was going on, and um, it sounds like you felt a little bit like you had to go and figure it out, right? So you were sort of looking online for more information to try and figure out what was going on, and you weren't exactly sure about the exact problem and what the plan was to fix it. Does that sound right?
That's 100%. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's just
Okay.
difficult. I think with anyone, whether it's for your knee, your, like, I know with my hip, I had some issues too, figuring out what it was. At first, the orthopedic said that it was a stress fracture in my hip. And then I went for a second evaluation and it turned out that I tore my labrum, which was significantly different, had
Hmm.
completely different protocols. I had to have a surgery. It was like
Yeah.
out of commission for a very long time. And then I was in PT for like nearly a year. So there's a lot of question when it comes to diagnosing and figuring out and being like an advocate for yourself when it comes to like preventing and treating that injury and figuring out exactly what it is, because you really are left in the dark, or sometimes you're in a doctor's appointment and they're spitting out all their jargon and you're like, what? Like you're
Hmm.
kind of just like confused. So it's a very confusing and frustrating process, to say the least.
Yeah. And so that was around the early part of the year, from what I understand. Is that correct? That you were having physical therapy? I forget which year it was. I think it was 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I started feeling it around, I would say like late summer 2022. And then it really came to a screeching halt around October 2022. I was told to kind of stay off of it. PT like 3 times a week. Running was like, you can run 2 miles, but if it hurts, like just stop. Don't keep on pushing forward.
Mm,
You can do the Peloton, you can go for walks, but Again, I still think they were still a little unsure too, based on like me going in, like what it was. Was it inflammation? Was it, like a recurring injury? Like what was it? I think a lot of people were left a little off the beaten path.
So you were sort of under the impression that you should stop running because of this
Hmm.
problem. Is that how it ended? Okay. And then
Yeah, and
how did you feel about that?
it was a dark time because it really brings me back to when I had my hip surgery and my knee surgery. And I think that it's safe to say that that's my therapy. That's like my mental clarity. It's
Hmm.
my, if I don't have that, it feels like a lot's ripped away. So it was not a good feeling at all, especially kind of going into, the perfect fall seasons when it's like the best time to run, the weather's great. I just have to be active. I'm just like a hyper person. So without exerting that energy, it was just like a lot. So I feel like if anyone told me, whether it's because of an injury or old age or whatever the case is, like if running was taken out of the like my day to day, I don't know. Like it's just very depressing as a runner, specifically when that you kind of told you can't run.
Yep, I've definitely been there a number of times. It sucks. It's the worst. But I
Yeah.
mean, at least I had the understanding of what the problem was, and I knew I would get better, because I just knew what the problem was and I knew what the trajectory likely was. And even though it wasn't what I wanted, I never thought I had to quit running. So that must suck. And I know that you're not the only person who has been told they have to quit running because they have, I mean, just patellofemoral pain. Like it's not
Hmm.
for me unless you've tried everything. Um, I don't think it's a reasonable thing to just, you know, early on in the process be saying you need to quit running just because it's not going very well.
Yeah. A lot of people told me through the entire process that like running's just bad for your knees, running's bad for your body, running's terrible,
God,
running's bad, right? And I'm like,
yeah,
shut up.
yeah. You should have said that out loud. That is so ill-informed. I mean, there's no excuse really in 2023. The only excuse for a health professional to say running is bad for your knees and that you need to quit running and that's the only way to get rid of your knee pain, but for having tried everything for like 18 months. But if this is early in your process, there's just no excuse. There's no evidence to support that, and there's evidence to refute it. I'm getting on my soapbox, and I'm going to stop. But I have other episodes where I rant
It's
on about
passionate.
how running is not bad for your knees. It is because, like you said, that this is your mental therapy, right? This is an extremely important part of your life, and if you're going to have to give it up, there should be a very, very good reason for that. Not just that, oh, it must be bad for your knees to run, and not even bothering to do a quick Google and see that the top result is research studies that show that it's not, you know?
Hmm.
Anyway, I will stop ranting. So, so, so we're
Hey,
at the
I'm as
point now
passionate as
where
you are. I get it.
you're sort of under the impression that you're maybe going to have to quit, and obviously not feeling very good. How did you get back to running again? How did you get going again?
I think I honestly went against doctor's orders. Like I just was like, if it
Yeah.
hurts, it hurts. I'll figure it out. And like that's when I kind of went down that like endless black hole of social media, like run talk. And I kind of fell into like I was just searching for what my condition was and how PTs would actually help with like what the exercise were. So I was literally like doing whatever my PT work was that my therapist here gave me. I was looking into like these like insane copper like ace bandages to wear, looking to see if I needed inserts in my shoes. Like I literally would spend any amount of money to figure out like what it was, but not only money, but like, and that sounds like really bratty of me to say that, but I feel like you just like I can't give it up. So like I literally would go
Mm-hmm.
to like any height to kind of figure out how to fix it. But yeah, like but again, like I feel like I'm not a professional runner. I wasn't guided. Like I couldn't just like call up a friend and be like, well, what do I do? Right. So
Mm.
just kind of going through this, you know, black hole of nonsense and figure and like kind of trying to custom create a program that really worked for me. And I don't think I was doing it right.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you hadn't had any training or experience doing that, so it's not reasonable. But you were just kind of, well, if I'm being told that I can't run and that nobody's going to help me get back to running, and I've decided that that's what I'm going to do, which you were right to do, you had to do it yourself. And then, so how did that go in terms of getting back to running? And when did you decide along that process that you wanted to talk to us?
So this was like kind of a funny process. I think how you and I connected was with I was just literally kind of going down that rabbit hole of kind of where can I find. Can you hear me, Matt?
I can. It got a little choppy, but I think we're back and
Can
we're good.
okay, sorry. Um, so I was kind of just like figuring out where to go. Like I said, like I was looking at Jason Fitzgerald's kind of stuff, and I kind of just like fell through. And I think I downloaded one of your injury prevention guides because I literally was like, I will download anything. I will listen to whoever listens to me. And then you reached out to me, and I remember like it was like in my head. I joined the lottery for the New York City Marathon. I'm like, I'm running it. And I remember my husband being like, it's now or never. Like you're getting older. Like you just got to do it. So I remember you reached out being like, how's your season going? I'm like, I'm coming off an injury. Like, got to figure out like what I'm doing. You're like, are you looking for a coach? And like, I honestly, like, I remember being like, not necessarily interested. Like, I want someone like boots in the ground, like here in New York. I want like someone that I can like be with all the time that can kind of like see what I'm doing right or wrong. And I remember you were like, no, like, let's just have a conversation. And honestly, like I wasn't expecting a lot from the conversation, but I think you and I probably spent like an hour and a half on Zoom talking about all this, and I felt so comfortable, and I was like, sign me up, literally sign me up. And I think we signed up that day. Um, I
Yeah.
honestly didn't think that virtual was going to work. I mean, it was post pandemic ish, but I really thought I wanted somebody, but it actually worked to benefit, right? So I mentioned earlier, I'm a mom of two young kids, managing an agency. I have been sick so many different times that I feel like if I had someone boots on the ground, I probably would have paid like 15,000 times as much as I would have with you. Like you offered that flexibility that I probably wouldn't have been able to have. So I'm like so happy that we kind of connected in the ways that we did because I needed somebody that would literally listen to me all the time. And I think with like so you were able to kind of help like navigate like, okay, well, here's the problem. And then what are your goals? And like, I thought that was really important at the onset. Like you weren't just trying to sell me. You're like, okay, well, let me see if this makes sense for me and my practice. So it was about like getting over a marathon finish line healthy and happy. And
Hmm.
I think we actually reference like the wheels will not fall off. Like that is my goal. Like the wheels cannot fall off. And like I need to get through. I need to rehab this injury. I need you to help me guide through it. And I thought that was really unique too because I was looking again like very like one dimensionally for a coach. And I never thought that somebody could be both. I never thought someone could be like a physio and a coach. I thought it was like one or the other, which was like I guess like naive on my part, but it actually worked like more than I ever had probably expected. And like really thoughtful. And again, like I don't think I looked at any crazy TikToks or Instagrams to try to find workouts to kind of integrate. So I think you took like a really amazing approach to like rehabbing and kind of creating a custom program for me. It wasn't like a carbon copy, like I think most people you meet online do, which I thought was really important. I mean, with my knee, I think I even told you a few times being like too many squats, too many lunges, like
Hmm.
I'm feeling like a little off. So,
You wouldn't lunge at all to start with. I remember.
I
I
wouldn't
remember it
lunge at
well.
all. Oh my gosh.
No, no,
I
we
would
had to
not
take
lunge
them
at all.
out for the first couple of blocks. Yeah.
That's how terrified I was about busting my knee again. And I was like babying it. And I remember you like pushing me, being like, it's like that adaptive zone again. Like you have to get through it. Like you have to feel it moving and working. You have to strengthen it because you're not going to get strong. And it's going to keep on happening. And I, little by little, I obviously trusted you and I did it. And then I felt better and better and better. And then it literally went away. So,
Hmm.
thanks for reminding me of that.
Do you remember much about that early period when we started, trying to figure out what you could do, what you couldn't do, and how to develop that program? Do you remember much about that time and what you were doing and how it maybe differed from what you had been doing or maybe what you expected in terms of what you needed to do?
So I wasn't doing anything other than running in Peloton and yoga. I was doing a lot of that. But I was doing literally zero strength. I never liked strength because I think I was confused by it too. Like I never knew like how to kind of build a program. I never worked with like a personal trainer or anything like that. So like I just didn't have like the foundation to make the calls of what I needed to do to kind of strengthen for running. Um, and then I guess when we started, I was, yeah, terrified of lunges, like terrified. Like I was afraid that I was gonna like, because you had me doing some of them like on like a bench press kind of table and like bending down past what I thought I could possibly do. And the fear kind of took over a lot. And I think having you on that opposite end being like, man, I can't do this. And you're like, no, 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 you can. Just like do it like this and, do it with less weight or do it with no weight and kind of gradually build up, but like you have to do it. Um, but I think that was great. And I think I also like the fact that like it was at the end of the day, it's like, when you and your partner are trying to figure out dinner, you're like, what do you want? What do you want? I don't know. I'm not in the mood, like whatever, this and that. Like this actually made it so much easier. Like I would just put it on my phone, put the app on, and it would tell me exactly what to do. Like all I would have to do
Yeah.
is pick my music. Like, and it was just like foolproof and so easy, and it made me feel really accountable. Um, I really liked that one time that you gave me like 8 hours and 58 minutes of work to do versus 9 hours. That was great for that one week. I was like, thanks for not giving me a full 9 hours of work to do this week. But that too, I think you were really clear. And I told you, I'm like, again, like I have a crazy busy life, but I need to prioritize getting over the finish line. So the way that we work together is that we built this program that like some days I would have double workouts, but that would mean I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and like run before the family's up, and then I would do weight training at 9 o'clock that same night. And I remember you always kind of like trying to give me like you were always trying to give me the out, being like, are you sure it's not too much? And I'm like, no, like I need to do this. So like I think you can like pick up on cues. And I think, to be honest, I think the most important takeaway I got was resting. I never rested. I never rested. I would literally run 7 days a week, do yoga 7 days a week. Like it was just like all or nothing all the time. And I just never realized how important and critical it is to growing as a runner. um, Taking that like week, like either lighter or completely off. And that was built into my program around vacations, hard times at work, when the kids were sick. And that was like extremely helpful. And I think it kind of level set me that like a break is good. Not all the time,
Mm.
but it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like you don't get fitter when you're running. You get fitter when you're resting. You don't get stronger when you're lifting. You get stronger when you're sleeping. You need both. And if you only have the stimulus side and you don't have the recovery adaptation side, then unfortunately you can't adapt. And I think that is a lot of what was going on with you with your recurring issues, is that this balance had never quite been found. You'd been trying to figure out how to train yourself to tolerate these larger volumes of running, but something would break, usually the knee, the whatever the weak link is, it couldn't handle that strain and it needed an adjustment in the way the strain was applied.
Accurate.
so so then we made steady progress over the months. We had, as I recall, when we started, about a year before you'd registered for the marathon, even though you could barely run. So so we had to
Cart
get you
before the
ready for the
horse,
marathon, but
always.
we did we did have time on our side. And so how did you feel going through, more out of that kind of recovery phase where we're just trying to get you to be able to tolerate running and lunging and just training, and moving more into, okay, my knee's feeling better and this looks a lot more like serious marathon training. We've got long runs in there, we've got hill sprints, we've got heavy lifting. Like, how did you handle that transition? How did you find it?
I love a good long run. So Sundays were like
Okay.
church for me. I think it was, I think it became a lot, but honestly, can you hear me, Matt? Sorry.
I think I lost you for a second there.
Sorry. I don't know why this is doing, but, um,
It's
so
okay. These things
when we
happen.
kind of picked
Um,
up,
yeah, you were saying about Sundays?
yeah, so Sundays was like church for me. Probably not so much my husband, but I was gone for, a couple of hours, and it felt so good because honestly, I never ran more than a half marathon. So it was like seeing that actual like trajectory of logging more hours. And I think that was something special too. Like I never did zone training ever. Like in fact, it was so hard when I first started. I was like, I don't understand how I can have to keep my heart rate like below. Like I feel like I'm walking and all I want to do is like turn on the engines and go. So like that was something that was like very new to me. I've heard it a bunch of times, but I just never applied it. So learning how to do that and not kind of keep my heart rate high and prevent injury too. But I loved it honestly. Like I I'm all or nothing like all the time. So this was like my all. It was something that I couldn't stop talking about. It's like the one thing I only talked about, and I just felt so fulfilled by it. I mean, there's some days I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. I'm not doing that like EMOP at the end of the training. Like I skipped this, stretched instead." But I think that we really created like a really nice kind of program together that I wasn't kind of skimping all the time. Like I was super dedicated, I was persistent, I was extremely disciplined. I think the one thing I really failed at, and I know you tried a lot of times to help me, was like the nutrition part of it. I'm like a terrible eater. So I blame it on like all the junk food at my house for my kids and working from home. But I think that was the one thing that I think as we train for the next one, I have to get better. I have to kind of do that in a way better way to kind of fuel my runs because I mean, even with my long runs, I never took gels. So okay, so my half marathons, I always did. I wouldn't carry water with me. I wouldn't have gels. I don't think I even eat before them, and I just would go. And I'd be like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
done. And then that was it. Like that was like I was like, yeah, I don't need fuel. I don't need to eat. I don't need to drink anything while I'm running 13 miles. Now I'm like, I can't go an hour without taking a gel and making sure that I have like, my hydration with me and stuff. So like there was a lot of things that I, learned beyond even just like the discipline and like the long hours. Like those fundamentals were so, so critical to the success here.
Yeah, yeah, it is everything, right? Because it's all well and good your knee, building up the tolerance in your knee and the strength in your muscles supporting it to tolerate the training, but also like you've got to fuel the training so that you can actually adapt to it. Otherwise, maybe that's why the weak link breaks, right? Because the fueling isn't there. And I know that the nutrition across the week is challenging, especially with marathon training, because people don't realize you get a lot hungrier because you're training, especially if you're lifting, which you should be, like you were. Your energy requirements are much higher than you might normally realize, and so then your hunger sort of drives you to just get whatever's convenient. And I know that that was a difficulty for you because it was already hard for you to get the training done with the kids and your work. um so then trying to have like whole foods instead of like easy foods is difficult, but at the end of the day it's better to have no to have easy foods than no foods, which
Mm-hmm.
people often do that, and they sometimes lose a significant amount of weight, can't adapt to their training, and that's why they get injured. So you got to give yourself a little grace when it comes to nutrition. There's always things we can improve. So if you like it, next time I want to do the marathon training just as well, but I also want to get that nutrition across the week dialed in to be healthier. I think that's an excellent thing to work on. But you had one thing to work on, which was get through this first marathon without your knee blowing up again, and you did that. So let's
Yep.
concentrate. So tell us about the marathon itself.
Okay, I'm telling anyone who's listening, if you are going to do a marathon for the first time, you have to do New York. Like, you have to do it. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. It's 26.2 miles of pure fun and joy. People are having parties. They're giving out shots. I saw people giving out like cannabis. Like, it was insane. People were spraying people with those numbing sprays, like biofreeze, like you
Are
could
you
smell it in
sure
the
you're at the
air.
marathon? This sounds a little bit more like a
Oh,
nightclub.
it literally was like a nightclub. Like, I don't even know why I wore headphones because I couldn't hear anything the entire um I think my Siri is going off. Um, so yeah, it carried me through. It literally carried me through. I had people from literally, like, my husband met me at 4 different spots. He'd like carried the
Yeah.
Gatorade, did all the things. Like, my kids were there,
Your
my in-laws
cheerleaders,
were
man. I
there.
saw in the videos that they were fantastic.
They had everything. They had apples and candy and confetti bombs and glitter and like my face on huge sticks so I can see everything. I also had like my name written all over me. So there was like Jenn on my arms, Jenn on my front, Jenn on the back. I like, Brooklyn had this energy. It was unbelievable. And I like ran through and everyone's like, Jenn, Jenn, Jenn. And there was like, I think I had like a block high five. I put my hand out and like it was literally a full block of people just like high fiving me. Because people are partying, they're drinking, it's like kegs and eggs, like they're blasting the YMCA. Like it's like crazy. Like, some girl actually came up to me being like, "Hey, can I run with you?" And I'm like, "Sure, like, let's do it." She's like, "Well, I want to run with you because my name's Jenn and I didn't write my name anywhere and everyone's cheering for you. And like, I just like need some like hype right now." So she ran with me for a little bit. I was like, "This is so awesome." And I will say, like, if you want to get into the marathon without the lottery, I joined Team for Kids, and like they were honestly like the best part of it. Like, they make you feel like a celebrity. They're a New York Roadrunners who puts on the marathon. They're one of
Hmm.
their charities. Like, literally like white glove service from like start to finish. Like, you have a private ferry that brings you to Staten Island because that's where you start. There's like a private tent. There's like bagels. There's like trainers there, private restrooms. Because I'm sure like people that like hear from the New York City Marathon, they say like, once you get on like the porta potty line, like get off the line and get back on it. And it was like completely different experience. So like they were amazing throughout the entire thing. I cannot thank them enough for like the amazing time, and so happy to have donated and like helped to fundraise for their team. But I mean, the marathon was amazing. So it was a little bit warmer than I probably had expected. It was like high 60s, so I was wearing pants, probably my first mistake. But I didn't practice my long runs in shorts, so I didn't want to like
Yeah, don't
bulldoze
change
anything that I
anything on race
had.
day.
Didn't change
Yeah.
anything. So I did that. You'd be shocked. I didn't cry. I thought I would cry the
No?
entire time.
Really?
I did not cry. I cried like literally, like I teared up when like the cannon went off and I was like, wow, this is happening. And I had a smile on my face the entire time. And for everyone listening, I literally got so emotional during even one of my practice runs when I heard a song or when I saw my kids. Like, sometimes my husband would drive up next to me when I was running through the blocks with the kids and I'd be like so weepy over it. But it was like the most amazing day. I know that, Matt, we discussed like me doing a specific pace, and I think for the next one we definitely could do it. This was definitely a fun run. I went well over, and now I can understand why you said like, I want to keep you where you are in like hours out there, because like your legs get so tired. And let me tell you, I think there was a point at mile 24 and I was like, forget this, I'm done. Like, I'm so done. Like, I'm just gonna walk off. I'm gonna get like a DNF. I don't care. Like,
There's
and then
only
I was
two
like,
miles left.
I was like 2 miles left. I can't do this. And then like running back. So it's like, it goes from like Staten Island to Brooklyn. You run into Long Island City, Queens, then you run up the bridge to the 59th Street Bridge. The First Avenue is like the wall of screams. You literally cannot hear yourself think about it. It's just like insane. But yeah, mile 24 really like crept up on me. And I think it was mile 25.9. Someone was holding a sign and I literally wanted to pick it up and like rip it up because I was like, I can't believe like, I don't want to do this. It like hit me so hard. But then I saw the finish line, which is all uphill. And I was like, oh my God, this is happening. And then I busted a move through it and it was amazing. I like can't even believe it. Like, it was like literally the best day of my life, because I think I was like
That's
by myself
fantastic.
out there. It was amazing. I did not have one injury. I had a pretty gnarly calf cramp. But that went away. But like no injuries. Like I saw people puking. I saw people like passing out on the side. I'm not even kidding. The things I saw. The medic tents were like all like lines out the doors. So I like felt so happy. And like after the race, like was walking around, felt amazing. Was like up and down the subway steps to like meet my family, took the train. Like it felt so good.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I just want to like relive the day over and over again because it was magic.
And it didn't put you off marathons? That little
No,
period you had of despair at mile 24?
it sucked, but I think it's because I had so much time on my feet. I was like, oh, this now I know why Matt told me to kind of like speedy it up and like not like party with my friends at like mile 23. Um, yeah, but no, it's something because like now it's like now I saw that and like I'm not gonna lie, like when I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh, I really should have done better. Like what was I doing? I was doing so good in the up front, the first half. Um, but then I looked and I was like, honestly, like I had the best time. Like I had the best
Yeah.
time. Like I don't regret it. I'm like, but the next one will definitely be a little bit more flat and way faster. So are you ready?
Well, we talked about this, didn't we, in the couple of weeks prior? We were saying like, what's the goal? And the goal was the same as the goal had been 12 months prior, which was to get through the marathon feeling strong without the wheels coming off and have fun. And you accomplished all of them in spades. So I think you can't have everything on one day. Like if you were going to push for a best performance, you're not going to enjoy yourself as much because you're going to suffer more, and you
Oh
already
yeah.
suffer enough just finishing a marathon. So I think
Yep.
you kept your priorities and your goals in mind with the way you tackled the race and had the experience you were looking for. So, but you said, what did you say? Next time. So, have you thought about what's next for you with your running?
So I accidentally again put the cart before the horse and I put a bid in for the Berlin Marathon in 2024. And
Yeah.
that was before I even stepped foot on the New York City course. So I should be finding out in a couple of weeks. But um, if not, I mean, I might join another team, do Chicago. That's another pretty flat
Mm,
race without having to travel internationally. But I don't know. I think this is my jam. I think like I'm gonna do a few half marathons in between, but I feel like for me, like those feel like almost like a 5K for most people. So um,
mm.
that's like a normal Sunday for me.
Yeah, yeah. And you have you told your cheerleaders that they have to come to Berlin if you get in?
Oh man, yeah. Well, Joe's a funny guy. He like was like the best during this entire process with like helping with like the kids and picking up the slack when I was out. And he's like, "You're on your own for Berlin if you go. Like, take your running friends. I don't need to go." And I'm like bribing him that it's Oktoberfest, and he's like, "You don't even drink, so like, why would you want to go?" I'm like, "I don't know." So it's just like another check mark.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. I think that's a wonderful place to leave it, Jen. That was I think you illustrated the story really well, which is what we want to get through, that is trying to give people some hope who are struggling with injuries. And I think, a lot of people don't even end up as low as you were, being told by medical professionals that you literally have to stop running because of your knee problem, to trying to rehabilitate it on your own, to getting through to normal training, to getting all the way to doing your first marathon and then feeling fine and being ready to tackle more. That illustrates that, if someone's listening to this and having trouble, there is hope. You can get better. There is a lot of adaptive capacity within the body. There are some cases where the writing is on the wall, but that is usually that emerges over a long period of time. You should never decide to that there's a certain goal that you can't achieve until you've really given it everything and tried everything. So thank you for sharing. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and it was lovely to relive the story of the last year with you as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Matt. This is literally like I've been able to do this from you and definitely Heidi and just like kind of like being my biggest cheerleader. And you better be at my next race.
We'll see. We have another baby coming, man. Like, I'll try, but I would have loved to have been there for this one, but I was like, oh my, no, it's not gonna work. And I thought with all those people there as well, she probably won't see me. Like, I'll go all
Yeah.
the way to New York, and we won't be able to find each other.
You'd be like, that's a bummer. That would happen.
Okay, well,
Well, thank you so
I'm gonna hit
much.
stop there. Thanks, Jen.